Tomorrow, Senator J.D. Vance and Governor Tim Walz will face off in the first and likely only vice presidential debate.
Both sides are hoping to swing undecided voters in a very close election now just weeks away. Valley News Team's Quinn Gorham spoke to Minnesota state leaders about what to expect tomorrow.
I want to preview the debate in its entirety. And right off the top, I have to say that Governor Walz faces quite a tough task tomorrow in New York.
A confident Jason Miller, senior advisor for the Trump campaign, was among several speakers in a pre-debate press call on Monday. Republicans came down hard on Tim Walz, tying him to the Biden-Harris campaign.
How does Tim Walz answer the simple question, why hasn't Kamala Harris done it already in the 3.5 years that she's been running the country?
Republicans have made it clear they plan to go after Harris and Walz in a few ways, but one of the most popular has been the economy. The Trump campaign has worked to attribute post-pandemic economic strain to the Biden administration. But tomorrow, their opponent is Tim Walz, and even members of the Minnesota delegation had some choice words for the Minnesota head of state.
J.D. Vance is prepared to wipe the floor with Tim Walz and expose him for the radical liberal he is.
Congressman Tom Emmer, who's been reportedly helping Vance with his prep, called Walz's persona a fraud. Meanwhile, DFLers in Minnesota holding their own event Monday spoke highly of the governor's personality.
But that's the Governor Walz we all know and love, and it's why this lie has fallen so flat.
Several others shared stories about Walz, but the main focus of the event was abortion access.
Trump and his MAGA allies want to rip away reproductive health care access from women in Minnesota and all 50 states. And that includes restricting access to birth control and threatening access to IVF.
Reporting in St. Paul, I'm Quinn Gorham.
Now,